It's interesting to me that those ones of our Sunday school lesson this morning in chapter 6 of the book of Luke, they should have read the chapter 6 of the book of Daniel. They should have reread it. They might have had a different perspective about things had they took it to heart. Be looking today just for a little while at Daniel and some of the things about Daniel, because it's kind of I kind of see a process here. A process of trials, then tears, then triumphs, then treasures, then teachings, and then repeat. And so the reason I think the reason that I've been brought to this chapter and this particular instance of Daniel and being thrown into the den of lions is because that after this, from chapter 7 throughout the rest of the book, it's all prophesying of things to come. God giving him insight of things that are yet to come. It's not that God had not given him these things before. He was able to interpret dreams and see things that were coming in the future for these different kings that he was under. And this particular one being Darius or Darius. I'll call him Darius probably throughout the scriptures today. And this king, there's several things we can see in this. I'll just begin. It says, it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom, and over these three presidents, of whom Daniel was first, that the princes might give accounts unto them, and the king should have no damage. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and the princes, because an excellent spirit was in him. How about that for a testimony? And then it says, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. Then the presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom. I will tell you, I will repeat something I've said many times, and that is that the righteousness of the saints will bring reproach upon the evil of the wicked. Just living right and godly in this present world will cause the world not to like you a whole lot. Simply because their deeds are wicked. And they'll know that. And it'll be exposed. As a matter of fact, they probably have protests. They just might go out there and do violent things. Stupid, violent things. To act out on their own. Never mind. Daniel, concerning the kingdom, he said, but they could find none occasion nor fault. For as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. This, by the way, should be the characteristics of every one of the children of God. This should be one of the characteristics of every member of this church. The pastor included, by the way. There's a whole lot of people today that think that they are untouchable because they are the children of God and they're just going to claim Jesus in everything. Let me tell you something. If you are at fault, you deserve the punishment. Lest you repent quickly and God pardon you. Now he says, being that Daniel he's got this testimony now before them, which this is going to be about the testimony of a man of God. So he has this testimony that there is neither error nor fault found in him. Verse 5. Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. We're going to have to look at the relationship between him and his God. I know it ain't been too long ago that I rehearsed this a little bit. I'm trying to go somewhere. It's probably tonight. I will probably venture off into where I need to be going with this. But so it's a process. Don't happen overnight. You ain't going to learn it all in one sitting. Right, Brother Mike? Brother Mike was frustrated, all of our Sunday school teachers and so forth. We get somewhat frustrated because we try to cram it all in, and we're trying to get way too much material in at one time, which I do that often. So we're going to try to get some important parts of this, which they all are important. Verse 6. Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king, and said thus unto him, King Darius, live forever. Man, oh yeah, flattery. Come on, build him up, puff him up a little bit. Said all the presidents of the kingdom, the governors, the princes, the counselors, the captains, have consulted together to establish a royal statute. We're going to make this a royal and name it after you. Is it hitting home a little bit? All right, listen. And he says, and to make a firm decree, that whosoever shall ask a petition of any God. Notice that the author put this in a capital G. And he said here that whosoever shall ask a petition of any God or man for 30 days, save of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. So if anybody's asking for anything, any petition from anybody but you, let's make sure that they get thrown into the, by the way, this is not the lion's den. This is the den where lions are. A lion's den might be empty, but a den of lions ain't empty. He said, now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing, that it be not changed, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. So now we're looking at a definite thing, something that is going to be firm and not be able to be changed easily or lightly. He said, wherefore King Darius signed the writing and the decree. Go with me just real quickly. This is kind of a side note that I wanted to present. Go with me to Proverbs chapter 14. We'll go back to Daniel 6 in a minute, but go with me to Proverbs chapter 14. I want you to go down to verse number 29. He that is slow to wrath is of great understanding, but he that is hasty of spirit exalteth folly. A sound heart is the life of the flesh, but envy the rottenness of the bones. He that is slow to wrath is of great understanding. We need to be careful today, because whenever we do things rashly and quickly, hastily, many times we will make a mistake. Especially whenever we want to go and we want to say, we need justice, we need this, we need to go ahead, we need to prosecute these people quickly. This morning in the Sunday school lesson. It was interesting that Brother Mike presenting this is, and they were looking about to seek what they could find about Jesus that they might be able to put him to death. And they were looking for these things. And as they were looking for these things and pursuing these things, they were hasty. Matter of fact, they even talked about the urgency of getting this done. Now, Proverbs chapter 28, and just one verse there, verse number 16. He said, "The prince that wanteth understanding is also a great oppressor, but he that hateth covetousness shall prolong his days." There is a way to build people up a little bit and cause their minds to change from what it might have been in sobriety to be frivolous. Let us not be caught up with that as well. That whenever people began to praise us and began to talk how great a job we're doing or something like that, help us not to be caught up into that we then make a very poor decision. Which King Darius made a very poor decision whenever he looked at this, and the urgency of the people promoted him and provoked him to make this thing quickly. And so now the king has established this thing, and it's not going to be easily overturned. Verse number 10 of our text in Daniel chapter 6, he said, "Now when Daniel knew," how about that? When Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being opened in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he did aforetime. This was something that he did regularly. And when he knew the thing was signed, somebody said, well, God gave Daniel this visions of all these things that are going to happen, made him to be able to interpret these dreams about things that was going to happen to these kings. Why didn't God tell him and warn him about the things that are yet to come? You know why? Because he didn't have to. Because these ones that he is warning about, they were not looking for any of these things. Daniel was looking. Daniel had a testimony that he was looking to serve God, and he was looking to live right before God. And so when the test comes, listen, we don't need the insight of what's going to happen tomorrow and the next day. We don't need to have a layout of these things if we'll do like Daniel and have the testimony in our heart that we're going to serve God regardless. But aren't we all wanting that fortune-telling cookie? By the way, there ain't no cookie about that thing. You got to take a hammer and chisel to knock it open. And then whenever you knock it open, some man has done stuck his fingers on a piece of paper and put it inside of there. I know a few people that do crunch on them cookies, and I'm like, are you serious? You actually eat them things? They're nasty. But anyway, so now Daniel knew that this was happening, and he knew. And so what was Daniel to do? Because a lot of times what we will find out, we'll find out something, and then we will alter our testimony. Daniel did not alter his testimony. Daniel did not alter his pattern of what he was going to do. He continued to do so. Matter of fact, there are a lot of people that have failed this test. Whenever it has been said that you can't do this, a government somewhere has said that you can't do this, you can't worship this way, you can't read that Bible, you can't preach in this name, and many of them have failed the test because of the fear of man was greater than the fear of God. Let's don't be failures in that. So Daniel did this, and in verse 11, Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. Remember, they said if we're going to find fault with him, we're going to have to find it between him and his God. Then they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. Now they're putting it back on the king. This is your decree. He said, hast thou not signed a decree that every man that shall ask a petition of any god or man within 30 days, save of thee, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? The king answered and said, the thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, he said, which altereth not. Then answered they and said before the king that Daniel, which is of the children of the captivity of Judah, regardeth not thee, O king, nor the decree that thou hast signed, but maketh his petition 3 times a day. Then the king, when he heard these words, was sore displeased with himself, and set his heart on Daniel to deliver him. And he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. Then these men assembled unto the king and said unto the king, now, O king, that the law of the Medes and Persians is that no decree nor statute which the king establisheth may be changed. Oh, they've caught him in a trap. Now King Darius is in this trap, and he's displeased with himself, with his own actions, because it's been discovered what has happened. What has he done? Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, thy God, whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. Notice this. This is an emphatic statement that he's telling Daniel. He's trying to comfort Daniel. Your God will deliver you. The one that you've been serving all this time, continually, he will deliver thee. 17. And a stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the den. And the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his lords, that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. Make it very clear. Make it very certain. Make it very positive that God, when he does deliver, that this is God and God alone. So far, what we've got up to this point is in verse 4, we've got the testimony of Daniel. Daniel has this testimony about him, and there was no fault, no error found in him. In verse number 7, what we find is we find the test that is coming. This is going to be a test or a trial that is coming upon him. Then what we find in verse number 10 is we find the tears or the timing, and we find the tension. So there's coming a time. Whenever the timing of a test comes, sometimes we're not prepared for it. We might know a lot about all the things that are coming our way, and we might even suspect things. But when the time comes, many times we are just not prepared. But there's tension. In verse numbers 11 through 13, we find the treachery against him. Those ones who are his peers, if you will. Wonder why that they got all puffed up about that. Y'all ever wondered why that those presidents and those governors there? Because the king favored Daniel. Do y'all remember another character in the Bible where the man in charge actually favored a man that nobody liked to start with? Because he was a foreigner? Y'all remember Joseph? There's many others, by the way, many other examples of this very thing. And what was it that the king saw in him? What was it that these kings had seen in Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Hananiah, Ananias, and Mishael? What was all of those things? What was the thing that the king saw in them that he didn't see in his own people? There was an integrity about them. There was an honesty about them. There was a purity in them. There was a prospering by God in them. They saw these things. They recognized these things. And so now what we have is that he has made this declaration to them. We find the treachery. Treachery. We find in the 14th verse. We find Darius' displeasure. We also find that he is deceived through flattery. We find that he has a desire to deliver Daniel. But we also find that there is a destiny of the decree. So, Darius is displeased with himself. Y'all ever been just frustrated with yourself? Why did I do that? I get that a lot from me. Why did I do that? What caused me to do that? Now, if we really do a self-examination and we go back to find out what did that, what was in us that allowed us to be vulnerable to that, and we correct that and we guard against that, then have we made ourselves better in the Lord. But when we ignore it and say, well, it just happens to everybody, then we're setting ourselves up for the same fall again. So he had a displeasure in himself about those things. He had been deceived, yes. He had been deceived about these things, but he still could have countered that. And he had a desire now, because of his displeasure, now he had a desire to try to make things right. You know, whenever we want to try to make things right, we know that we've done somebody wrong. We've offended somebody or something like that. And we want to try, we have a desire to make it right. There's a way to go about that, to make those things right. And that is an honorable thing, to have a desire to do that. But just to leave it at a desire and let it go away is not enough. We got to pursue. We got to do something about it. So, he tried. He tried all day long to try to reverse this with Daniel, and he couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. So now there was a destiny involved. In verse number 16, we find that the devils cast Daniel into the den of lions. The devils. Who's the devils? By the way, it's the same ones that will be cast into there later, and their families. And so in verse number 17, we find something in verse number 17. I want to go back there and look at it. And it says that the king had put this stone and brought it, and he put that on there on the mouth of this den, and he put his signature on that, and the Lord's signature on that. But listen to this, that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. Now, the purpose of the decree that it be carried out was one thing. But there was another purpose that was in Daniel that God had. God had another purpose for these things. In Joseph's life, his brothers meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. There's a lot of things that may happen to us, and we're wondering, like, why did this happen to us? Why are we being treated so like this? And we're wondering about that. And it may be that there's a purpose there, but there may be a greater purpose. A greater purpose, maybe to get us to a place to where that we can really be a witness and testimony of the greatness of God. Are we willing to endure those things? Now, starting in verse number 18, it says, Then the king went to his palace and passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments of music brought before him. By the way, the same music that he wanted played, you know, that was to be played. And whenever it's to be played, they're to honor the other king. Now, listen to this. Kings a lot of times would have music played to them to try to get them, in the evening to wind down and to be able to go to sleep. Many times they did this. They had a lot on them. And so he didn't ask for any instruments of music and nothing brought to him before him. And his sleep went from him. He couldn't sleep all night. Darius couldn't sleep. He had told Daniel, he said, the God that you've been serving, He's going to deliver you. He will deliver you. Isn't that what he said? Then why didn't he go back and go to sleep? A lot of times people will say things that they don't truly believe, but they'll say it for the benefit of somebody else that they might be encouraged. Daniel didn't need it from him. But he said in verse number 19, then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste unto the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. And the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God, whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions? Interesting, isn't it? He's calling out. I'm sure that he can't see him. I'm just sure. He had made it that this thing be closed up and sealed up. And so he cries out, and he's really concerned about Daniel, isn't he? Legitimately, he's concerned. He has stayed up about all night long. Now he's come out there and he's asked him, he said, Daniel, oh Daniel, was your God able to deliver you? Oh, I love this. Daniel had a purpose. He said that there was, by the way, time spent in turmoil. There's time. By much tribulation, by the way, we enter into the kingdom of heaven. There's a whole lot of travail that precedes triumph. There's travail of soul and of mind. There's brokenness. By the way, I don't see the brokenness around people anymore. I don't see the broken down, the humbleness and the weeping and so forth as they see people before, or see themselves before an almighty God. And so I worry about that. I worry when people can nonchalantly say, yeah, I need to be forgiven. The king had done something, and now he toiled all night long about it. He got up the next morning and went over there and he asked the question, is thy God able to deliver thee? I'll ask you that question. Is your God able to deliver you? The God that was erected unto King Nebuchadnezzar, that 90-foot tall, 9-foot wide statue of gold, was not able to deliver him. There's a lot of things that we are raising up and we're looking up to today that are raised up high, and so that we can see them and we're like, yes, this is going to be my salvation one day. I know I've read the scripture over there speaking about, that there comes a time whenever you better make friends with the mammon, because that might be all you have. Make friends with the wicked money, because if you ain't got God, you're probably going to need some money. You say, even when I got God, I'm going to need money. Not really. Not your own anyway. Is your God able to deliver you? Is your God able to deliver you? My God is able to deliver me. I love what Daniel said. Then said Daniel in the 21st verse, unto the king, O king, live forever. In other words, be at peace. Everything's great, bud. He said, my God hath sent his angel and hath shut the lion's mouth. I sure wish today that there'd be an angel to shut up the lion mouth. Lion's mouth or lying mouth. Boy, wouldn't that be great if I got lockjaw and couldn't speak? Huh. But anyway, this angel was sent, and there was literal lions in there, and that he closed their mouths, shut them up, shut up. Whenever the enemy's coming in, the enemy's right there, and they're all, you say, preacher, what do you think happened in that den? Whenever Daniel was thrown in that den, that there was something that took place, that whether it was prior to that or at the time that Daniel was thrown in there, I'm not sure. I'll tell you this, that there wasn't a scratch on him. They didn't come land on him and try it for a little bit before he got closed up. Did y'all get that? We live right before God, and God will send, before we ever get to that problem, He'll send a cure for it. Many times God has already prepared things for us to whenever we get there. He's already taken care of it before we ever arrive at the need. God sees the end before the beginning. We ought to rejoice in the fact that we've got a God that can prepare for us before we have the need. Or at the point when we have the need. He said that they have not hurt me. They have not hurt. I've speculated many times that maybe they didn't hurt him. Maybe they just laid down there and Daniel just kind of fluffed the mane up a little bit and just kind of like, can you move over a little bit more? Hey, I'm getting a little cold. Can you come over here and lay beside me? I've speculated on how that God used the same thing that the devil was trying to use to destroy, and he used that same thing to comfort. God is the only one that can do that, and so nevertheless, Daniel had cried out and told the king this, and he said, for as much as before me, for as much as before him, innocency was found in me. God had found me innocent. What did Job say about that? Didn't he tell his friends that my witness is in heaven and my record is on high? He called God. Moses called God for his witness one time. These ones that call, God is a witness. There is a record being kept. And Daniel found it out. And there was nothing found in him. So he was examined by the people, by the princes and the governors, and they couldn't find any fault in him. Now he's examined by God, and God found nothing but innocence in him. Isn't that interesting? Because wasn't he accused by the people? And yet Pilate declared that I find no fault in this man, nothing worthy of death in him. And God had declared, this is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased, hear ye him. So both of them. Now Daniel. And it said, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. I've not done you wrong. Nothing. Then in verse 23, then was the king exceeding glad for him and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him because he believed in his God. Because he believed in his God. This will be the reason, by the way, that the children of God come through and triumph over these tests and these trials and so forth. This will be the reason is because that we believe, because it's by faith. For it is impossible to please God without faith. He believed God. And then uh, in 24 it says, and the king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions, them, their children, and their wives, and the lions had the mastery of them, and break all their bones in pieces, or ever they came at the bottom of the den. This is, by the way, something that I want to declare unto you, that it wasn't that these animals, I mean, we can't say, well, these animals, they had already been fed, and they weren't really attacking and so forth like that, because immediately afterwards, these other ones, these accusers of Daniel, was turned out. Let me tell you what the Bible says about that. He said that he will turn their devices back upon their own head. This is what happened with Esther, with Mordecai and Haman there. It's what's happened throughout the Scriptures. We find that the devices that are devised against the children of God stay faithful unto God, and at the end, God will turn the very devices they use against us and turn it back on them, and they then will be destroyed. You say, well, preacher, we ought to have a rejoicing whenever the wicked are divided. No, the Bible warns us against that if we revel over the times whenever the wicked are being judged, then God may turn His face from them and turn His wrath from them and turn it on us. So let us leave sleeping lions lie. And let God take care of it. Mm. Mm. A couple things I want to, in closing, I'm not going to read the last few verses. I'll bring that up again tonight. But it seems to me that in the testimony of a child of God, that there's going to be trials. Trials are going to come. Offense is going to come, but woe unto that one in which they come. But there'll be trials, there'll be offenses, there'll be things that'll come. The trying of our faith, he said, whenever we have come through that, it's worth to us more than rubies and gold. And so it's precious unto us. The trying of our faith is actually precious when we come through the other side of that. And it's precious to Daniel. And so Daniel had a testimony of the way things went. He knew how these things went. He understood how this went. So when he come to this point, so the trials are going to come. And you know, during the trials and even as we're coming out of the trials, there's going to be a lot of tears that's going to be shed. We're going to cry out to God. I don't know how many times I've rehearsed this, and we've read it in the Scriptures where that people would not hear God when He cried to them. And then whenever they turned to cry to Him, He turned a deaf ear to them. Let us be careful that when God is speaking to us, we listen very carefully, because we're going to want Him to listen to us one day. We're going to have a need in the midst of a trial. We're going to have some tears that we want to pour out to God. Let us, with a consecrated heart, righteous unto God, so that let us bear that testimony. And then after those tears, and after that has reached the throne of God, by the way, in one passage it said, talking about with Daniel, he said, from the day that you mentioned it, Gabriel was coming to talk to him, and he said, from the day that you had uttered your prayer, he said, it was heard in heaven, and I was dispatched. You know, I'm paraphrasing here. But he said, the prince of Persia withstood me. He had to fight with the prince of Persia. But he said, Michael came and helped me. Now, it's interesting, if you go back and read that Gabriel, the angel Gabriel, had said that Michael came and helped him, and there was that battle of the prince of Persia. But then after that, in closing, Gabriel said, Michael is Daniel's angel. So now Daniel had a need for a militant angel. It's one thing to receive understanding from God. And we're like, oh, we've got this great understanding and so forth. And to hear the jubilant, I mean, whenever we've studied the Word of God and we're pleading, we're wanting an understanding, and we're asking God for this, He may send Gabriel with the great news of this great understanding. But then with that understanding, it's going to come a great responsibility. And with that responsibility is going to come a great attack. So the trials are going to lead to the tears, and the tears are going to lead to the triumphs. The triumphs are going to lead to the treasures. What do we have in earthen vessels that we can go back to? What do we have that we can hang our hat on? If you don't have a place where you can go back and say, I know that God was with me. I know that God did this and God had done that. I cried unto Him and He delivered me. Listen, you say, well, preacher, I'm young. I've just been saved a little while. Let me tell you that you'll find your own way there too. But I thank my God that I've got places I can go back to and say that God delivered me. And I know my God will. He will again. And again. And ultimately, like the three Hebrew friends of Daniel that the king threw into that fiery furnace there, what they said to him first was, they said, we won't be careful to even answer you about this thing. We're not going to bow to you. And yes, our God will deliver us. He said, we don't really know how He's going to do it. You know, whether it's going to be in the fire, through the fire, out of the fire. But either way, He will deliver us out of your hand, O King. What a testimony to have. What a treasure to have. Daniel, also, he got the teachings. He got great understanding. He was taught some things of God. And he had some great understanding from God. We want understanding from God. We want to know about these things that are yet to come. Say, preacher, I want to know all about it. I want to know every step. I want to know everything that's about to happen. Let me tell you something. If the truth, if every detail was revealed to us, we wouldn't be able to handle it. I know that's a phrase out of a movie. You know, you can't handle the truth. But the truth is, we can't handle the full truth, everything. That's why God only gives us what we need. He provides for us what we need. Daniel was given some great things. After this, Daniel had come through all these things. And I said this, I wrote this down. This is a thought that came to me in about 4:30 this morning. That was, out of great testing comes great understanding. Out of great testing comes great understanding. Daniel is in chapters number 7 through 12, he is fixing to be given something and given understanding of, and it troubles. Some of the things that he learned before troubled him. You say, well, was he worried about the things that he was fixing to go through? No, actually, if you go back and look at it, each time he was troubled about the understanding he got of what's going to happen to the king. That's what he was troubled about. Now he's troubled about what's going to happen in the future. Matter of fact, it weighs on him quite heavy. But out of great testing and great trials comes great understanding. We have a better understanding when we come through the other side of this thing. Did you know that many times that experience really is the best teacher? But it is a taskmaster. It is tough to learn by experience. It's tough to learn by our own mistakes. But when we have them, we're not as soon to go back to that. We put up a guard, don't we? Pianist comes on later. What was Daniel's protection that he had up? He continually served his God. continually through the convenient season and through the inconvenient season. Through the times of prosperity, whenever he was raised up by a king and given all this property and all this prestige and all this power, and whenever he was brought down low and cast out, and even cast to be killed, he was still faithful to the Lord. Continually he served his Lord because he believed his Lord, and God, the Lord, delivered him. Has God quit doing that? Did he quit that in the Old Testament? Did he quit and say, nope, not in the New Testament, we're not going to do that? Actually, he reinforced it even better whenever he sent his Spirit to live in us, to comfort us. The Comforter came, and he gave us his Word. And by his Word and by his Spirit, we can then be strengthened. Because I read about two preachers, well, a preacher and a song leader, that ended up in jail. And about midnight, they was praying, singing, and the Lord showed up and rocked that jail. Shook it open. There was a great shaking. Some people talk about a great awakening. Oh yeah, it woke them up. God sometimes will show up in a time whenever we're not looking for him to show up and do anything great. But we sure are grateful when he does it. You know, if Daniel got tore up by them lions, what would have happened to Daniel? He'd have went on to be with the Lord, according to his testimony. But what would have happened to the people? They'd have missed a great message. So when Daniel got out, chapters 7 through 12 are going to be declared. Chapters 7 through 12 are what we're going to be dealing with in the book of Revelation. And he didn't understand all these things, so he had to go back to an old prophet named Jeremiah. And Jeremiah had in his already declared these 70 weeks that Daniel then got to understand. Through great testing comes great understanding. Don't hate the test. Don't hate the process. Praise the God of the result. Stand with me.